Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. This morning, I want to talk to you a little bit about rock bottoms. For those of you who aren't addicts or who have never heard the expression, a rock bottom is pretty much the breaking point. What happened or what event or what moment made you reach the bottom? Like, this was it for me. A lot of us have a different story about what our rock bottom is or what it was. And sometimes the things that people would think would be the rock bottom, like for instance, if someone, is not an addict might heard that you got into a car accident or you got into a really bad fight or lost your job or lost your house or something like that happened to them, they would think, oh, that's the rock bottom. But you'll be surprised that rock bottom means different things for different people. And no one can define that moment. It's within yourself. It's just something that happens and everyone has a different story. I've also found that over the years of your addiction, whatever it is, for me being alcohol, you might have more than one rock bottom. You might have more than one thing that happened that would make you feel like this is the end, this is over, and you're not going to do it anymore. And I know I've had quite a few of those. It's interesting that sometimes when you hit a rock bottom, you really try hard to stop your addiction. I've had some rock bottom moments and I really tried hard to stop drinking. And sometimes I'd have a little bit of success. I'd go a month or two or a couple weeks. But in the past, I never had a rock bottom that really made me stop. And it's sad to say that because I wish I did. Maybe I wouldn't have drank for 15 years. But I never had one of those moments until May. And so today I just want to talk to you a little bit about my rock bottom and how I stopped drinking, which eventually led me to the carnivore diet. And we'll get into that later as you stick around on my channel. But I just want to talk about my rock bottom moment. So on May 21st at work, I was recovering from a hangover, of course, and, trying to get to work and do the right thing. But this was a particularly bad one, and I really probably shouldn't have been there. My anxiety was at an all-time high. I didn't sleep very well. And I wasn't a person who liked to call in sick too much, especially I had a very important position and my absence would affect more than myself. Obviously, it would affect other people. And so I didn't like calling in unless it was absolutely necessary. But that particular day, I went to work. I did not call in. I made the long commute and I felt really, really bad. And for those of you who have been drinking as long as I have, when you have those bad mornings and those bad days, the only thing that's really going to help you feel better is to drink. And if you don't, you know what kind of day you're going to have. I'll just put it like that. So I got to work. And I knew from jump, just the way I felt inside, in my body, my anxiety, that it was not going to be a very good day. But I went anyway, and I was trying my best to do my work, but my mind was so frazzled and so anxious, and I was so focused on how I was feeling, I wasn't really able to do much of my job. I want to say this was about 10 in the morning where the anxiety had gotten so high. I started to have this weird sensations in my body that I had gotten before. They weren't nothing new to me. I knew the feeling. I needed to drink. My skin was warm. My heart was beating really fast. I was actually having palpitations at this point, which have been happening to me more and more frequently, but they were really bad. And my chest was hurting. And I had a lot of pressure in my chest. And so as a nurse and anyone who knows anything about having pressure or pains in your chest and you're in your 40s, that's not ideal, and you probably need to go to the doctor. But I knew it was related to the alcohol. At least I thought it was at that time. I was feeling worse and worse, and the panic level was getting higher and higher and higher. I was in pretty much full panic mode. I remember grabbing a request off paper and filling it out really erratically and looking at the calendar and saying, okay, I have these many hours. I'm just going to take the rest of the month off. It was May 21st. And I was crying a little bit and I was worked up, and then someone asked me, I was like, am I okay? And I'm not feeling good. I'm sorry, I'm not feeling good. And I grabbed my things and I kind of ran to my boss's office. I shouldn't say ran, but walked very fast to my boss's office. And I said, I'm sorry, I have to leave. I don't feel good. I can't stay. I have to go. And I was so anxious. And they kind of looked at me like, are you okay? Like, probably wondering if I was okay to drive. And I said, yes, I'm okay. I'm sorry. I just have to leave, in a very, very panicky, anxious state. And I just dropped the paper on her desk. I drove in my car and I was so scared and panicking. I felt so bad. But my first stop was actually the liquor store. I drove to the liquor store because I knew whatever was going on, it would feel better if I probably had a drink or two. And so that's what I did. I drove to the liquor store and I got, I want to say 5 shots. Okay. I bought 5 shots and I guzzled 2 of them immediately. My drinking had gotten to the point where medication, it felt like medication. That's what happens when you've been drinking for so long and you drink to an excess and then you feel really bad symptoms. The only thing that will really make you feel better is more alcohol. And it's so sad, but that is the truth. And anyone who's been drinking for a long time or drank too much and then gets those sensations knows what I'm talking about. For some people, it's really bad tremors, the shakes. For others, it's really, really high anxiety. It's weird feelings in your body. It's different for different people. And I wouldn't say I had really bad tremors or shakes, but my anxiety would get really high. I wouldn't be able to kind of sit still or relax in my body. I couldn't concentrate or focus. And I knew that the only thing that would really make me feel better would be, of course, having another drink. The other thing that happens sometimes is you get really sick. That can happen. It's different for different people. The other thing that was happening to me more lately is that I would be having pains in my upper chest and I would have palpitations and they would go away once I started drinking. So I went to the liquor store and I had a couple of drinks and I just tried to sit in the parking lot and calm myself down so that I could get home. That's the only thing I could focus on. My anxiety was through the roof and I said, I just need to get home. I need to get home. So I focused on driving home. I saw the house in my head and that was able to get me home. So I was able to go home. I got home and fell asleep. I felt very, very sick. I passed out on my couch and I probably slept for 3 or 4 hours. And I woke up needing to drink again. That's what happened. And I just acted like nothing happened that day at work and just kept drinking the rest of the day and the night like I've done many times before. The next morning, I felt really, really bad. I was sick. I was vomiting. I just felt like crap. And I felt worse than I normally did. And the palpitations were out of control. And I was hurting. But I was very afraid. I was afraid of going to the doctor. I was afraid of what they would tell me. And even though I thought I would die, it wasn't enough to get me there. It's hard to explain. I just thought if I just stay here in my house, everything will be okay. This will pass. The pain will pass. The feeling will pass. Well, I went like this for a couple of days, feeling very sick, not eating, drinking a little bit just to make it through, laying in the bed, just awful. In fact, I had never felt like this in all my 15 years. I knew that something was definitely wrong. It took me 8 days to finally get the courage to go to the doctor. I made a decision. I woke up and I said, I can't continue like this. I don't know what's wrong, but I don't want to die and I can't do this anymore. I called the urgent care and I spoke with the triage nurse, and she informed me that when you have been drinking for a significant amount of time, alcohol does damage to all of our organs. And so she wouldn't know what was really going on inside unless I went to the doctor. And she advised me to get to the urgent care as soon as possible. When she said that, I was really, really scared. I was afraid because I knew something was really, really wrong. I want to say I jumped up and drove right away, but that's not what happened. I had to go to the store, and the liquor store, guys, was 2 minutes driving, maybe 5-minute walk from my house. I lived in a cul-de-sac and I could literally pull the car out of the driveway, circle around the cul-de-sac, and boom, there was the store. Not a good location to live when you're an alcoholic. Anyway, I got some shots in a bag, and I remember I bought 8 because I said, these are the last 8 you're going to have, so you better stretch them out. I took 2, and that was to get me in the shower, dressed, and to not back out of my decision. Because you have to understand, I had needed to go to the doctor so many times before, but I was nearing the end of my request off for work, and I wouldn't be able to excuse all the days I had off, or if I needed more time, if I didn't see the doctor. So I kind of felt like I had no choice. I was like, this is it. I have to hear the news. I have to see what's going on. I got to do it. I drove to the doctor, and I went to urgent care, checked myself in, and they gave me a pink card, and the pink card means you're going back right away. So I knew that my conversation with the triage nurse, put some kind of alert in the system and made it that I was a high priority. 40-year-old black woman who's an alcoholic for 15 years. Yeah, I'm probably having a heart attack, right? So that didn't help my anxiety, but I went back there shaking, nervous, and the first thing they did was give me an EKG. An EKG is a diagnostic test that measures the electrical activity of your heart and lets the doctor know if there's been any damage. And when she did my EKG, it said sinus tach. And so I was like, sinus tach, that's it? Because I was expecting some really bad rhythm or some block or, I don't know, something catastrophic. And sinus tach means my heart was beating abnormally fast, which I know was true because I was very anxious. I had just had a couple of shots. I think my heart rate was 127. My blood pressure was like 176 over 110. I mean, it was bad. And so I kind of got excited, and she was like, well, you still need to be seen by the doctor, and you still need to get some blood drawn. And so I said, okay. So I waited to be seen by the doctor, and he gave me an examination and asked me lots of questions, embarrassing questions, and I had to admit that I had even had shots before I got here. I had to tell the truth. And he told me he was going to order me some labs, and he touched me on my chest and pressed down, and he did all kind of exams and asked me a lot of questions about my history. And I told him, what I was experiencing, and so he ordered a bunch of labs. I went to get my blood drawn. I thought, well, if he's letting me walk away to get my blood drawn, like usually I know from experiences in ERs or just working in them, they'll just draw your blood right then and there. But I thought, if he lets me get up and walk to the lab, maybe I'm not in that bad of shape. That's what I thought in my head. So I walked to the lab and got my blood drawn and went to my car and waited for the results and had another shot. And I was just thinking, this is ridiculous. Like, I should be laying on the bed somewhere attached to a monitor. They're letting me just be on my own. But I have an app, and the app shows the lab results as they're coming in. I remember it was a chemistry panel and blood studies, a pregnancy test, and a troponin. And all the other results were coming in. My sodium was good, my glucose was good, my liver enzymes weren't crazy, or whatever he took. I don't remember every test now. And I remember the pregnancy test and the troponin were the ones that were no results. And I was like, okay. I knew I wasn't pregnant, but the troponin was the one that really had me worried, because that's the one that will let you know if there's been damage to the heart and if I've had a heart attack, and that result didn't come in. So then I knew, and I started to get very anxious and very worried, and I just knew that this was going to be the news that I was dreading for the whole week before I got the nerve to go to the doctor. So they called me back, and the doctor's like, well, all your results are good, and your sodium is good, and this and blah, blah, blah. And he said your troponin was normal. And I stopped, and I was like, wait, what? The troponin is normal? And I remember I grabbed the doctor, I touched him, I was like, oh my God. And he said, don't touch me, COVID. And I was like, oh my God, doctor, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to touch you. I just couldn't believe I'm not having a heart attack. I'm sorry. And he looked in my face and he apologized, and he said, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to react that way. It's just that we're not really allowed to do so much touching with everything that's going on. You have to understand. And I didn't understand because I was a medical professional and I touched all of my patients, but I just said, okay. So he said, going by your lab results, it's clear that you're not having an acute issue that has to get you admitted. You're not having a heart attack. What is going on is that you need to seriously consider calling the detox center, and you need to consider detox seriously, because the problem is that you're drinking too much. And I was discharged and I was free to go on my way. On the drive home, which was not far, I was really kind of bummed. I was kind of disappointed. I was more like, okay, so I worked myself up this bad, and I got the nerve to finally come here for them to say that nothing's wrong, that I drink too much. Well, I know I drink too much. That's been my problem. So I was a little upset, actually. I hate to say that. And I sat in my driveway and I was like, man, I finally got the nerve to go, and nothing's wrong. I mean, something was wrong, but nothing was wrong. So I sat there in my driveway and I contemplated what I would do. And I looked at the number and I just kept thinking about it. And I said, Portia, what do you have to lose at this point? I mean, what do you have to lose at this point? So I called. I think this was probably, this whole day is my rock bottom moment. I mean, I had to call and admit I'm an alcoholic of 15 years. These are my symptoms. I just left urgent care. I'm not having a heart attack. I'm this sick because I'm drinking. I let it get to this point. The nurse was very nice, very understanding. I mean, she's probably heard so many more stories, some worse than mine. When you're telling your story, when you're telling your frequency of drinking, how much you drink, how often, what's happening to you, it's so shameful. It's so embarrassing. You know better. It's not something you want to talk about. But I answered all of her questions. Honestly, they ask you about your drug use, if you've had any, your promiscuity, not to be in your business, but just to kind of get a feel of what you're going through and what other resources and help they can give you. They ask you about your drinking. They ask you about all your physical symptoms. It is about an hour questionnaire, triage session, whatever you want to call it. It was a hard, long hour. But I answered everything truthfully. I said I didn't have anything to lose at this point, and I was very honest. She told me that I could be able to see a doctor today by Zoom, and he would give me my options. And I was like, sure, that's great. And so I went in the house just thinking about what I had just did and wondering what was next. This is all very new to me. And even though I have been drinking for so many years and tried to stop so many times, I tried to stop on my own. I've never sought medical attention. I never sought medical intervention. I would always go cold turkey, symptoms and all, and it was horrible. And if you're really in a bad way like I was, and it gets to the point where you have physical symptoms and you really can't stop and the withdrawal is just horrible, I really don't recommend going cold turkey. It's very dangerous. You could have a seizure. A lot of things can happen in your body and it's not safe. And I will say that honestly, I'm not a medical professional. I mean, I am a medical professional, but I'm not a doctor. I won't try to tell you what to do. It's just my own story that I sought medical help because it was necessary. So I waited for the doctor. He called me. He gave me my options, which basically were I could start inpatient detox in the hospital, but because of COVID, I might not be able to start today, and it's pretty expensive copay wise, and a lot of patients were not doing it. A lot of patients, of his patients anyway, were having a lot of success by doing detox at home. And so I thought, how am I going to do that? How am I going to do detox at home? I do have 2 teenagers that live with me. I have a full-time job. It just kind of seemed impossible. And it was that negative mindset and that negative thinking that I was so good at that made me think that this is not going to happen. But I listened, and he pretty much told me I would get some medication called Ativan, which is an anti-anxiety, and I would be able to start today if I wanted to. And I was like, that's it? I can start today? And he said, yeah, you can start today. Is this something you'd be interested in? And I said, yes, I would like to start today. I have to. So I went through the detox, and let me back up. I'm sorry. I went to the pharmacy and picked up my medication, and I was a bottle of Ativan, and I went home and I had my last shot at 7 p.m. And I said, okay. And I was outside enjoying myself. I was in the sunshine, sitting in the chair, and I was just thinking, this is the last drink I will ever drink. It was 7 p.m. By 8:45 or 9, I started to feel that little feeling that I get. And I was like, it's time for another drink. So this is how it works. This is where I'll take my first dose. And that's what I did. I took my first dose and I waited for the magic to happen. I wouldn't say it was magic, but what happened is I took the medicine, and once I felt it working, pretty much I didn't feel panicky or weird or any sensation in my body that would let me know I needed the alcohol, because the medicine was doing that. And I was like, okay, this is okay. By 10 o'clock I felt good, 11 o'clock I felt good. And I was like, wow, that's weird. I would have had another shot or two already. And then about midnight I went to bed, and I felt a little something, because sleep, and we'll talk about that more as you get to know me in the videos, was hard and scary. And if you're an alcoholic, sleep is not a good thing for us. You either pass out drunk when you go to sleep, or you go to sleep feeling sick, or you wake up in the middle of the night. You don't have a sound, restful, peaceful sleep when you are having a night of drinking. It just doesn't happen. So I took a medication before I went to sleep, and I actually slept some hours. And when I woke up first thing, I took another medicine, because that's what I was told to do. Not that I would have had a drink maybe first thing, but the goal is to not have any withdrawal symptoms. So I woke up, took my medication. The Kaiser nurse checked in with me. They check in and see how you're doing, how you're feeling, how your night was, any symptoms that are different than what you normally had. You know, my palpitations were very mild at this point. I still had the little pains that I get, but not scary pains. And my anxiety level was maybe at a 30 instead of 100. And so I was like, okay, that's great. Just keep doing what you're doing. Keep taking the medication. And so that's what I did. Over the course of 4 days, I took my Ativan. And I would notice as the days went, the stretches between doses would get wider. So like, let's say, for example, I took my pill at 9, maybe I wouldn't need another one till 12. And it was getting like that. And I was like, wow, I can do this. This is good. I'm just going to be an Ativan. But I didn't know you're not going to keep you on Ativan. So by day 5, I think it was day 5, if I remember right, I was getting a little concerned because the pills were almost gone. I don't know, 3 or 4 doses left, and I was very scared. I did not want to drink again. I had made my mind. Remember I told you mindset. And my mind was made up. This is the lowest it's gotten. This is my rock bottom. I'm not drinking anymore. So when there were only a few tablets left, I was very afraid. And so I talked to the doctor. I was like, I'm afraid of having a seizure. I'm afraid of feeling those symptoms in my body. There's no more Ativan. It's making me anxious. Like, I don't know. What can I do? And so he prescribed me a medication called Neurontin, which is used for diabetics when they have neuropathies or seizures. But it has some unlabeled uses for alcohol withdrawal. And I took that medicine 3 times a day. And I would say it helped me feel like an even keel. I wasn't like nervous, anxious, feeling like I need another drink again. I had this really bad, scary idea in my head that I would have a seizure and die. So I don't know if it was placebo effect, because taking the medicine made me feel like I'd be okay. And so I took the medication, and I began my rehab via Zoom group therapy. And I did that every day, 3 hours a day, for 3 weeks. And it had a large AA component attached, but some other things too. I really feel like I learned a lot. I dove in deep. I really got inside of myself and, openly expressed and shared and did my homework and learned from the therapist, who himself had been an addict of 25 years. And it just gave me a time to really reflect on what I had done, where I had been, and how much I'd overcome. And then I would look at the counter each day, like, wow, I'm 10 days, I'm 11 days, I'm 12 days. And I got such courage and motivation and drive to keep the days going. And that's kind of what happened. Being off of work for like a month, because, when you are, people don't think so, but alcoholic disease is a health condition. It is considered a medical disease. You can be off. You do need to seek doctor's help. It is dangerous. So I was able to be off of work on a leave because that was my diagnosis. And going through rehab was a part of it. Seeing the doctors in between was a part of it. Making sure my heart was okay for follow-up was a part of it. I was off for a medical reason. It wasn't just chilling and, doing some Zoom classes. It was serious. And I needed to really make sure I stayed away from alcohol. But my job at the time was little demand. I wasn't demanding because I had did it before for so many years and I excelled at it. I was very good at it. I enjoyed it. But for going through what I was going through, it was just not really a good time to be working. I commuted an hour and a half every day. I was on call 24/7, which meant I could be waking up out of my sleep to take a call. And you can't really focus on things like that when you're trying to heal yourself and you're trying to focus on staying sober. So it was a good little break because I really got to focus on me and focus on my healing and focus on my health. And so that's what I did. I did that for a month and started the journey to becoming sober. During that time, I did a lot of fasting because I had fasted before in the past. And I really think the fasting helped me mentally to focus on what was important, focus on detox, focus on the rehab, focus on myself. I did a lot of soul searching and reaching in deep and more thinking than probably I had really had time to do in a long time. And it really put things into perspective and opened up my eyes onto just how bad I got and how bad off I was and what could have happened maybe if I didn't go to the doctor that day. I really thought if I didn't go that day, that maybe I wouldn't have another day. So I've talked for quite a bit. That was my rock bottom. I'm really looking forward to tell you what happened after that because there's so much more. In fact, this moment, this rock bottom is what led me to my carnivore journey and all the great success I've had there. But I'll save that for another video. So thanks for watching and I'll see you on the next one.